Great, there's some pretty loud rock music going on over there. Let's see if we can cross over. I'll take this route back up to Vračar, the wonderful neighborhood of Vračar. Spectacular city. Definitely, if you come here, I would highly recommend Vračar as a neighborhood to stay in. It's, I think it's the best part of Belgrade, certainly that I've experienced. And it's very close to the center as well. Vračar, look it up. You've got St. Sava's Cathedral there, which is an absolute stunner. So, let's walk and talk, brothers and sisters, my 11% of female viewers. In this video, I'm going to talk capitalism, I'm going to talk civilization, and I'm also going to talk sexual dynamics. On this channel, I discuss the most important thing in human civilization, which is dating and mating. The pairing up of man and woman, yeah? Adam and Eve, yeah? Without which there is nothing. So that is where I put the focus of this channel. We are currently at 1.2 to 1.6 birth rate per woman across the entire Western world. For anyone who is uninitiated in this means within 4 generations, if not less, it is completely game over for the Western world. On top of that, it also means the only way to survive even up to that point is actually mass migration. Yeah, and I'm going to come on to this later on because people are unaware of the real reason for that. It's a huge theme. I don't think it's a taboo theme at this point, so I don't mind talking about it. And it's actually related to the man-woman question. The man-woman question at this point is the biggest question in society, or certainly one of the biggest questions in society. I think is probably on a par with home ownership in the Western world. Oh yeah, that's the other one. Young people being completely priced out of respectable home ownership. No, I don't want to live in a 1-bedroom fucking hovel in Blackburn, thank you. I would like to buy a normal home, yeah? Oh, that'll be 2 million, excuse me? So, yeah, this is, and it is actually all linked together. And if you think, Joseph, you must be mad, you can't tie all this together, you would be incorrect. You'd be incorrect. This is going to be a very big thread today, and I think some regular viewers will really enjoy this live. So as well as all the theory, I also do show people, how to go out and get numbers, how to interact with attractive women. I'm a practitioner of what we call daytime cold approach. It just means going over to women in the day, meeting them, saying, hello, excuse me, you look gorgeous today. And if there's a conversation to we have the conversation. And if there's a number to be taken, we take the number, right? And we go from there. So I've been in Belgrade for a week. I've done 2 little mini sessions. I did 1 session last night, which was just a few approaches. I ended up with a very beautiful girl's number at the end of that. And I've just done a little session tonight, which is just 5 approaches. And I didn't end up with any numbers, but the girls got progressively more attractive. Really, for me, it's just about staying sharp. Yeah, because I'm a coach, I coach guys to do this. So really, for me, it's just about getting myself into the approaches. If I do things wrong, I always know exactly what I've done wrong. I didn't really do a lot wrong, to be honest, tonight, other than I didn't push a couple of interactions which I could have pushed further. But to be honest, I wasn't bothered. I just wanted to do the open. So, yeah, what we 8 approaches in. I've already got a number. I've already got a girl who I'm going back and forth with. She messaged me to saying something along the lines of you ignoring me. I was like, fucking hell, I was just trying not to look desperate. Now I had stuff to do today, so it's funny that she's already waiting on my text. She was fucking hot as well, man. Jesus Christ, last night. Just a side point before I get into my main threads here, which we're going to start off in front of this incredible presidential palace. A side point for daytime approach for guys who are looking to get into it. If you're in these evening style approaches where it's about 7, 8 o'clock, you can still be out in the street, especially in summer, speaking to women, and you see the girls that are really dressed up, like really dressed up, absolutely that's a green light to go and approach them. This whole thing of like, oh, I just dress for myself, it's complete garbage. It's total bollocks. And there's been a lot of really horrific propaganda saying, oh, just because she dresses a certain way, she's not asking for it. No, she's not asking for it, but it is an indication this would be a good person to be approached, most definitely. So when a girl's really glammed up, the best thing to go, my final approach tonight was, hey, excuse me, you look incredibly elegant tonight. That was my final approach. Literally, I was typing the title of the live and I just saw a girl. I thought, I've got to finish on that one. And she really liked the compliment. You can see it in their face when they genuinely light up. And I just had a maybe 2 to 3 minute conversation with her. I could have pushed that further. To be honest, I didn't want to. Yeah, I'm here in Belgrade. The girls are up for it, but it's not super promiscuous. Everyone's throwing themselves at each other. And I'm like, if I really want a girl, I will burn it to the ground. I'll absolutely burn it to the ground. But if I'm just kind of like, that was a nice interaction, I'll let the girl go on her way. I'll leave her be, yeah? I don't need to be trying to get into her life, trying to have a one night stand with her. I don't need it, yeah? Oh, we've already got, okay, so we've got, oh, RJ, nice to see you, mate. Most men think that women see them as imposters. It's not true. The shaming, yeah, so this is the thing is, all humans are brainwashable. All humans are brainwashable. Women are very, very brainwashable. We kind of know that, right? But guess what? So are men. So are men. And shame is a very tough one for men because, you know, we want to be strong. We want to be seen as masculine. And so we don't want to complain. If something's getting to us, if we feel like shit about something, if we feel ashamed of ourselves for something, we don't want to complain about it, right? We kind of want to suck it up. But the shaming stuff, absolutely. Yeah, it's really heinous on men, and that's what causes the hesitation. And unfortunately, everybody loses. Everybody loses because men don't go over to the women, which is still expected, even today in the modern world, etc. Men don't go over to the women. Well, that means nothing even starts, yeah. And also, what it also means is that the good women will fall into the hands of the worst men. So the men who just totally ignore all the social cues, the men who are kind of the primitives, who are unsocializable, they don't respond to this training because it's easier to train a smart dog than a dumb dog. So the intelligent men, they get the memo from society. They get the memo, oh, I need to treat all women equal to me and, you know, be nice to women, respect women, don't see them as sexual objects, don't sexualize them. The intelligent men get that message. The dum-dums don't. So what happens is the dum-dums and the criminals, and often, quite frankly, the migrants who come in, yeah, the decent ones, not the you know, I'm not going down that route, but they're from places like Turkey or whatever, more aggressive, Africa, they actually get the girls, yeah? Or guys maybe like me who've kind of woken up to it, yeah? I think there's a certain bracket of men where there's something so deep inside them that knows there's something wrong and it just won't accept the brainwashing. That was kind of me. And through my own life, a little bit through the internet, but mostly through friends, I kind of unraveled things over time, managed to reconnect to myself. So yeah, the brainwashing is deep, and we have to be always on guard against the brainwashing. And the thing is, you feel it in the moment as well. You can say, I'm not brainwashed, I get it, I understand how it works. Yeah, go and do an approach line in front of 20 guys in front of the bus stop, or in front of a bunch of women. Then you'll feel it inside you, and you realize, I've still been conditioned. And even I would apply that to myself as well. Yeah, subconscious is extremely powerful. Yeah. So let me get started with just to finish off on what I do on this channel. I basically, as well as talking about intersexual dynamics, I'm a constant practitioner. So this is a very slow weekend for me, very slow, pedestrian slow, and I've still done 8 approaches. Yeah, and I've still got 1 number, and that's a pedestrian weekend. So I am still truly out in the field in a way, and this is why I often come in on lives walking around, You'll notice most so-called coaches on the internet, not to throw shade on people, but most so-called coaches are optimized for YouTube. They're not actually optimized for meeting women. And the reason I know this, because they never show any infields. They never show themselves in the field actually speaking to women, which you can see at least a dozen infields on my channel. Yeah, because that's bread and butter. You can see infields of my dates as well. At least 2 dates. One of them on the beach, another one just on a nighttime date. And so the guys who got no infields, I'm sorry, they can't be listened to at all. But they've optimized for YouTube, which means they've optimized for grabbing an audience's attention, holding the attention, peaking it with an amazing story, makes it all sounds brilliant, and it's mostly bullshit, right? Real cold approach is it's fast, it can be a little bit chaotic, or sometimes it just looks like nothing. Some of the best approaches ever. My best infield on this channel is about a 30-second infield, which is way back, like a year ago. That was the best approach I've had, the best connection I've had. It was almost like when I locked eyes with the girl, it was almost like just took ecstasy or something. It was weird. And I ended up going out on a date with this girl. I've been in touch with her for an entire year, right? So what is in reality a fantastic approach and connection on YouTube just looks like absolutely nothing, right? And conversely, these amazing explanations, these amazing theories about male magnetism, all of this bullshit, right? Hypergamy, oh my God, all of this nonsense. Yeah, you'll notice those guys in their bedrooms with the lights, and there's a lot of them, or guys telling stories, and there's a lot of them. Some of them are quite famous, like fucking Hamza, yeah, for example, or even Tate. How many infields has he got of him interacting with women? 0, yeah? I'm sure he gets girls, to be honest with you, but my point is, for your average guy, you need to know how to really do this. Okay, what's step A, right? Or even your analytical guy. What's step A? What do I do? How do I approach? How do I get the girl's attention? How do I stop her? What do I say? Yeah? What happens when she says this? What happens if she kind of carries on walking a little bit? All of these things, right, all the bread and butter that I explain and I show in depth on this channel, they don't show any of that stuff because they don't know how to fucking do it. Yeah, cold approach is just a skill set, just like any skill set, which actually does need refinement, and it does take skill. Anyone who's done it, even if I took a very socially confident, attractive guy and I just threw him into the street and said, right, go get 10 numbers this afternoon, compared to a guy like myself or my wings, guys who are actually trained, 10 is a lot, to be honest, 10 numbers, let's say 5 numbers in an afternoon, I think he wouldn't stand a chance. And I could even say like a male model. I would put myself up against a male model and say, if he doesn't know what he's doing, I'll wreck him. I'll absolutely wreck him. He won't be able to do it. That might be a good video to do. It might be a good subject to do. So this is what we talk about on the channel, just giving guys, highly intelligent, highly analytical guys, step-by-step process whereby you can acquire numbers, whereby you can acquire dates, leads, contacts. If you don't have any numbers, if you don't have any dates and leads, you don't have a personal life. Yeah, there's nothing to talk about. There is no hypergamy, right? If you don't have the fundamentals. Right, we've got a green light here. So that's what I focus on this channel. And then on these lives, I come in to discuss the bigger civilizational stuff. So without further ado, let us begin this intellectual quest, shall we? So capitalism, society, and male-female dynamics. We're going to go really fucking hard in this one. We're going to go really fucking hard. So, well, first of all, capitalism versus trade. Okay, free trade and so on. Trade has existed in the human species for quite some time, probably around 5,000 years. Yeah, the human species is much older though. We're 300,000 years old. So a lot of our evolution is really based around what you describe as raiding culture. So where you have tribal communities who basically, you know, they have their own little mini community where their basic, very, very basic needs are met. They rove around, working the land a little bit, tilling the land a little bit, but mostly just foraging and hunting. And that's about 290,000 years of human history. It's the vast majority of human history. So biologically, we are wired, both men and women, we are wired to respond to indicators of fitness in that context. We're not totally wired to respond to indicators of fitness in modernity. So an indicator of fitness for a man is obviously, from a man looking at a woman, is obviously her physical body, her signs of fertility and health, yeah? And that's overwhelmingly youth. It's overwhelmingly youth, right? Women know this more than anybody, but it's overwhelmingly youth, 18 to 25. I don't care what society says, that is women's physiological peak. That's the time, maybe 18 a little bit young, but let's say 20 to 25. That's the time where a woman can have very easily strong, healthy babies. Let's go and walk around the church here. That's the time in her life where she can have very easily strong, healthy babies, and she can recover very quickly as well. Yeah, and it's not a coincidence. That's the age at which men find her most attractive. Yeah, there've been lots of studies, photos where they look at, what are men's tastes, etc. And it ends up actually even being younger than that. It ends up being about 16. Yeah, but let's just say for PG reasons, let's just say young, let's say 20, yeah, an adult woman. That's what it ends up being. And this has been scientifically studied, like, I don't know how many, a dozen times now, men's sexual preferences. And it literally is based on age. Yeah, a woman's feature, men just have an innate ability to see, a woman's youth, which is essentially a code for fertility, essentially. So we've got a church here behind us. Amazing church here. So, yeah, from a male point of view, female fertility, obviously things like, large breasts, curves around the hips and backside, those all code for fertility, a little bit of muscle tone as well, also codes for fertility. It's why men typically will prefer a girl who's the very lanky, female model type. It may be quite striking, but inherently, in terms of getting your blood boiling, a girl with big tits and big ass, she's just going to get your dick harder faster. It just is what it is. Yeah, and anyone who's had a bit of experience, that's kind of how it works out. Yeah, the skinny girls, for me, if they're quite toned and muscular, that kind of does something with me as well. And I think again, that's a sign of fertility. So men, we have that instinct. Women, they have their instincts as well, obviously. Physical fitness is, of course, a major thing for women. Physical strength and physical facial fitness and so on. They're not attracted to like a 90-year-old man, obviously. But there is a broader set of characteristics that will attract a woman. Things like social status, emotional maturity, and so on. The kind of leader of the tribe type personality, the guy who kind of socially gets it a little bit, that is also very, very attractive to a girl. And just bold leadership and confidence, that's really shockingly attractive to women. And you can do a lot just based off that. Too many guys have given up the ghost just because they're not models, and it's really depressing. But if they only knew that actually, I used to actually envy those guys, because I didn't consider myself to be one of them. I was kind of an intermediate, a bit of everything. But I used to envy those guys. I was like, fuck me, this guy's just such an animal. Just gets all these girls, fucking hot girlfriend over there. It's just this amazing confidence. Yeah, just like fun leadership type figure. It's also why men as they age can continue to get attractive young women. I'm 40. I'm not saying this to, brag or something. It's really not something to brag about, but from 30 to 40, I've had much better quality of women really getting on for the type of women that they're decent, mate. They're decent. They're the type of girls I certainly couldn't get at 21, 22. And the girls themselves were between 20 and 25. And they're just much better than the girls I could get when I was younger. So you could say I'm a late bloomer, possibly, but you could also just say this is the general pattern for men. You continue to work on yourself, you mature physically, Men are also able to hold our physical, we're fertile for our whole lives, and our physical bodies, like we can hold a lot of muscle and a lot of fitness long into our lives. Yeah, it only really starts to taper down after 50, realistically. So I'm 40. The girl whose number I got yesterday, she was 20, so she's half my age. So, you know, I have a very good vibe with girls around that age as well. So that's one advantage to being a man, but there's more expected of you as a man. So that's the kind of basis, that's an introduction to human male and female attraction in psychology. Maybe that'll be interesting for people who are watching this. It may be news to some people that you can be a 40-year-old man, you know, still attracting 20-year-olds without too much difficulty, but you really can. But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. The whole looks maxing thing has gone way too far. They should be doing more balls maxing. So let's come on to, basically our attractiveness is rooted in primeval biology. Yeah, essentially Neolithic biology. Yeah, pre-civilizational biology. Okay, then we start to form eventually. You have the kind of warband type of culture. It's different cultures. There's the Turkic farming culture, which establishes itself quite early on. So it's the farmers. But then you have the Neolithic warband, the Bronze Age warband, the Yamnaya, who are the most significant population, certainly in European history. They're basically the foundation of everything. They were guys who got together around the Russo-Ukrainian steppe, and for students of prehistory, this is the event. They're basically the first warrior caste, the first true warrior culture. They tamed horses first. They smelted bronze first, so they had bronze axes, and they also had the wheel as well, the chariot. So they created the first horse-drawn chariot, and it had bronze axes. And because of their diet, they ate a lot of meat and milk as well. They were actually much bigger than, for example, the farming populations. I think their average height was 5'9", which I'm 5'8", so I would have been under average height like 3,500 years ago. Imagine what kind of animals they would have been back in those days if their average height was 5'9". Yeah, 3,500 years ago. Absolutely unbelievable. And they swept across Eurasia. They swept east all the way towards Japan into Mongolia. They swept down most famously into India. That's why you have India and Pakistan. You have a different. I'll come back to that in a moment. And they swept also down across Europe, into the Balkans, into Serbia, into Germany. They even got as far as Ireland as well. They swept into the UK. They even swept as far into Ireland. So if you can imagine an empire which informally swept from Ireland all the way to Japan, down into India and Pakistan. Yeah, and it wasn't really a true empire in the sense it had no central node. It was just essentially a race, the Yamnaya, as a group of warfaring warbands. A warband basically. And the high status men in that group, they were buried with bronze axes and so on. I actually wrote a book about this. I don't have the link in the description, but you can search for it. It's called Blood and Bronze by Joseph Blake. There's a few Blood and Bronze titles, but it's the one, you'll see my name by it. It's a theme I was very interested in, and they had a big influence across the entire world, including India and Pakistan. It's why northern Pakistan, they're basically white as compared to the Dravidians in southern India, where they have a totally different racial characteristic. And the reason they're significant in this like male-female dating thing is because they basically introduced like full-on brigandry, warfare into the gene pool, organized warfare, instead of the first kind of raiding caste. And the way you gained wealth in those days was not really the way wealth is gained or created in the modern world. It was basically stolen. Yeah, you go in, you hack your opponents to bits, you take their stuff and you take their women. Yeah, and so that was the early form of getting rich and wealthy. Yeah, And all of these old kings and so on and sultans, this was how they would get wealthy. So it was not it's really not a society in which wealth was produced. And then their descendants actually founded the Greek city-states as well. If you look into the old texts, you see like, oh, why are they all fucking blonde? Why are all the founders of the Greek city-states, why are they all blonde or ginger? It's because they were the Yamnaya. So that's something from genetics, all of which is now being confirmed, people are not aware of. So the early states, they were founded not by commercial people, not by capitalists, not by innovators. They were founded by men who would ride in on horseback, kill everybody and take the women captive. And so that's how these places were founded. The Greek city-states were 30% slave. Athens, Sparta, they were 30% slaves, right? The plebs. Basically, you have the same in India as well. It's the same setup. The untouchables are just the slaves. And so the way that you had high society in those societies was to have a segment of the population that did all the grunt work and were just simple slaves. Right? That was what their economy was based on. It was a slave economy. So Aristotle, Plato, Pythagoras, the reason we have all of this intellectual development, we have all the mathematical development, ultimately is because they were the gentry and there was a subterranean class, 30% of the population, I'm going to go around this way, 30% of the population, which were slaves. Perhaps an ugly truth, but it's a truth nonetheless. Same with Rome as well. You have your slave caste. So all of these great civilizations, the labor underclass that formed them were basically slaves. And that was perfectly in keeping with the elite dominance rule that established these societies. So even in those societies, right, you have this kind of very visceral, barbaric format to the structure and to the organization, and it's really more the sword than it is the scientist or the accountant, or the financier that rules the roost, right? And the politico, right? And that's most of history. But I'm just particularly talking about the West here. And then eventually when they fall to the Ottomans and the Germanic barbarians, it's much of a muchness. It's all the same. It's all basically the same. And so in those societies, it really was all about status. And you can see there's a big hangover in human civilization, right? With status, strength, etc. It's why even today we have this, like, really, why should someone like a boxer, why should he be considered super attractive to women? Why does he have all the girlies after him? All these men who are like serial killers who've got a nice mugshot or whatever. Why would they have all these women after them? It doesn't make sense in the modern world, because it's not adaptive in the modern world to be a serial killer, or maybe like a top boxer in globally, but in general it's not very adaptive to just be a hard ass fighter with good features and a great physical strength. But it's viscerally attractive, and that kind of dominance is viscerally attractive to women, because even going into civilization, Greece, Rome, the civilizations were still based on dominance, really, physical, political, etc. They weren't based on what modern society is based on. Okay, so where am I going with this? It basically, you can just see how status and dominance are absolutely fundamental in low growth societies. And even Athens and Rome, which were they were higher growth than almost anything that had come before them, they're still low growth, right? And it takes us until about the 1500s to even begin what you would describe as the age of economic growth, the age of economic expansion. Right, so everything really before that time was basically, in terms of dating and mating, it was basically you married off according to your class. If you were in the upper echelons, you would just be married off because it was a question of preserving wealth. You had wealth transfer and wealth preservation, which was mostly based on serfdom, which is another version of slavery. So if you had lands, you had serfs who would till the land for you. They pay you a portion, and that was it. That was how you became wealthy. You didn't need to found Facebook. You didn't need to be Henry Ford. You just had a bunch of land, which probably one of your ancestors took by force. Yep, and you took profits from people who rented your land. That was how wealth was siphoned, basically. And so, yeah, the kind of Marxist view of history in that regard is actually true. Up to a certain point in history. And it's really the 1500s things started to change. In the lower classes, you pretty much could do what you wanted. You probably weren't going to live that long. You could pretty much do what you wanted, though. The lower classes, in a way, had more freedom. You might even say they married for love, in a way. I mean, it's conceivable. The upper classes is very, very much just a commercial union between two households. Actually, to be honest, that was a good way to do it. It makes sense. It makes a lot more sense in the way nowadays you have entire family fortunes which are completely destroyed by a divorce, which is utterly stupid. So the way they did it was actually sensible, supervised, and then people get married off. And you had a certain level of, although there was a lot of kinkiness and everything back in the day, much more than people appreciate. Yeah, you look at the old Greek texts. People talk about the gay stuff, and there's a little bit of that, especially in Sparta. But one of the funniest things is the way they talk about women. It's like any woman's problem, any medical problem, the first thing you need to do is fuck it out of her. She's got a migraine. She needs to get fucked. You need to fuck the migraine out of her. That's basically the solution for most. It probably is, That's basically the solution for most of the female ailments in those old texts. Yeah, and you go down through the ages, they were quite kinky in a lot of places, They really were. People think it was all prudish. Not really. Not really. It gets more prudish when people get into cities, like bigger cities, Victorian London, for example, because you have the beginning nascent spread of venereal disease, which basically if you look at a graph of sexual strictness in morality versus venereal disease, they go up in tandem. So if you have if you have a lot of venereal disease, what you'll find is the sexual morality is quite strict. People will obviously veer off and they'll go and risk it, and they'll get venereal disease, and that just kind of perpetuates it. But yeah, back in the day, when you didn't really have so much of that, you have some quite loose morality, pretty wild morality in some cases. Let's go up this way. So yeah, that's the kind of backdrop to it all. Coming into, we're up to the Middle Ages now, right? This is really the start of capital, and so I've given you a backdrop. Pre-Middle Ages, you've got societies based on war bands, based on force, based on status, power, aggression, and might. And then also, not just you as an individual, who your boys were as well. You need massive armies, to actually, you need to coordinate massive armies, right? So that was what society was essentially based on. And the mating, kind of dating and mating, piggybacks off the back of that, really. And even sexual attraction piggybacks off the back of that. There's stuff that I could say about female attraction, which I think I might have talked about this, but women have an ability to essentially be aroused by NC sex. Because a lot of sex in history and a lot of children were conceived without consent. And it's kind of fucked up, and we don't like that in the modern world. We're a lot more. I mean, I don't think I'm being a feminist by saying, yeah, that's not something we want to see in the modern world, but it's a fact of female sexuality, right? If you look at a lot of their fantasies, what are their fantasies? It kind of simulated NC sex. So there's all sorts of dark offshoots of, well, we call them dark by, really, there is no morality in the animal world. And so We call them dark, but really it's just an adaptive trait from a biological point of view. You know, there's war bride theory as well, that there's a lot of women historically were literally taken as war brides. Certainly in Serbia they were, and they had to kind of learn to love the man that they were with, who may have been amongst the band, may even have been the very man who killed their husband. It's very tough history, right? And it's kind of interesting psychology as well. It's like women's ability to do this. Like, is there a flexibility in them that can actually do that? If they're being penetrated by a new guy, they just automatically eventually become loyal to him, even if he's a sworn enemy. Now, you saw some of the girls in France, how they acted in the occupation. It's very possible that is the case. A nice building here, Bradshaw. So there's all these interesting evolutionary offshoots of female sexuality. And as we come into the age of capital, we're now well within what would really be described as high civilization at any point in history, where we've got all of the city-states all over medieval Europe. We've got, we've just lost, Christian Europe has just lost Constantinople to the Ottomans as it becomes called Istanbul. Mehmed II takes it. And that's a big civilizational shift, actually. All the Greco and Italian culture moves out of Constantinople and escapes up into Italy, basically, or across into Italy. And essentially that is what causes the birth of the Renaissance, is that. So although Mehmed must, as an Orthodox Christian, be my sworn enemy for all eternity, he actually, it was certainly not his intention, but he actually caused a massive resurgence in Greco-Roman thought, which led to the Enlightenment in Europe. So, it's interesting from a civilizationally evolutionary point of view. It's just massive, a horrific defeat for Christian Europe, losing its largest city to the Muslims, turned out to be the very thing that spurred Europe into completely running away with world culture for the next 500 years. It's very interesting. Inadvertently, Mehmed spurred that revolution, and you can say in a way it's just evolution, isn't it? Like the Ottomans were stronger, fitter. Eventually, they took the city that they wanted by force, and that forced evolution culturally and in terms of innovation in Europe as well, or it led to it. It's interesting, these forces, violence, conquest, they can actually lead to massive civilizational jumps. And this is where we get into, the age of the city-state and capital and so on. It's 1500s onwards, basically Italy. And we have the beginning of capital as a force, and the beginning of innovation, increasingly rapid innovation, as a way of simply driving up the quality of human life. Right? And there's been phases where, like industrial northern England, where the people doing the work and doing the innovative work didn't see so much benefit from it. The working classes and so on. But overall, the standard of living has basically gone up, let's say from 1500 to now, to the point, if I was walking around Belgrade, Visegrad, 500 years ago, it's obviously not going to fucking look like this, right? And it's one innovation after next, after next, after next. A lot of it's in Britain, obviously, but it does start off in Italy. And so what happens with all of that is human society always follows along with these things. Sexual morality and the relationships between the sexes all follow along with these things. But basically, even with all of that, you have a little bit of, for the average person, you have a little bit of, improvement in quality of life. A little bit. You have an oven in your house, or you have something approaching an oven. Yeah. Your clothing, gets a little bit more. Maybe you don't have to make it all yourself. Eventually, a Frenchman invents a flushing toilet. Lavoisier, thank you Lavoisier, I really appreciate that. And what a great fucking invention that was. And over time, we just get one innovation after the next, and the first half of the 20th century really sees us enter the period of modernity, where we really move from, we're moving from horse and cart to, thank you Henry Ford, the motor vehicle. We're moving to air travel and air flight. The Wright brothers, thank you, the Wright brothers. And you start to get a picture like, oh, humanity is, literally taking off, is taking flight. Electricity, Nikola Tesla and Edison. Right? So all of these innovations, which we can never take these for granted. We're kind of living in a kind of very, very high-tech society. What we think of as a baseline, a toilet, electricity, forget about the internet, forget about that. A toilet, a car, electricity, and the ability to fly to different countries. And mass-produce clothing with different colours on it, relatively decent medical care. Forget about telecommunications. That shift alone is monumental. It's enormous in the history of humanity, right? We're in totally uncharted territory because it's not just one innovation. It's 100 innovations, right, and inventions. And it's never the politics. And this is the illusion of politics. It's not actually the politics that takes us forward. And in fact, politics only becomes possible of any description once you've reached a kind of level of abundance. Yeah? You can even think about something like as kind of insane as mass democracy. There's no point. Before a certain time, there really is no point. What are you going to vote over? Well, literally, there is no redistribution. You're a serf. Yeah. So the structure of society needs to be much more dynamic, and that only comes when there's been a lot of technical innovation. You can sell many different types of products, many different types of services, and you start to get a much more fluid, much more dynamic society. It's good for people like me, families like mine, because we could go from being peasants in West Island to eventually being middle class in England. Through our labour, through our minds and our labour, over the many generations. Probably most people anyone watching this will be in a similar position, even if you think, well, I'm probably working class. Yeah, working class. So compared to what? Compared to 1500, it's still pretty good. So yeah, we're in this relatively new period, 500-year period. And marital norms remains pretty stable through that, and actually it's one of the things that kind of kept civilization on the straight and narrow. Like, we had relative progress, relative little bit of abundance, enough to actually create stable families, a little bit higher level of living for the majority of the population. I would say my grandparents, they had flushing toilets, so this was a step forward. They were working class, but it's a step forward. Both my parents grew up with outdoor flushing toilets around the Midlands area, and then I grew up with indoor flushing toilets. Amazing. And yeah, this is all relatively new, right? And an intact family and a conservative mindset was just the only way to survive. Yeah, you couldn't really fuck around. You couldn't really piss your life away, going out drinking, doing drugs and fucking around. You just couldn't really do that. So as a man, you pretty much... Also, there's no contraception either, which is the biggest thing. There's no contraception, there's no abortion. So if you're a woman, you need to be careful who you sleep with, because you may end up with this child. Yeah, and having a child out of wedlock is not good for you, because no man, even in modernity, but certainly back then, no man is raising your kids. And as a modern man, you shouldn't raise another woman's kids either. That's her fucking problem. Those were her mistakes. Yeah? Obviously, civilization has become way too fucking tolerant of that nonsense. But as a woman, there was no contraception, so you had to be careful about who you slept with. You couldn't just get with the guy who titillated you on the dance floor, got your pussy wet, got your clit on fire. You couldn't just get with whoever excited you. You actually had to look at them and go, wait, is this guy interested in me? Does he like me? Would he want to invest in me? What if I got pregnant with him? Would he marry me? Should I marry this guy? There was a lot more cognition that had to go into it. And the social norms were a lot stricter for guys as well. You couldn't just go around impregnating women. God knows what would have happened to you. Like around a working class neighborhood, if you got 3 women pregnant, probably their dads would get together and you'd just be found in a ditch one day, and that'll be it. And that really would be it. There would be no, there's no fingerprints, there's no anything. You're just gone. Yeah? Probably the same for messing around with guys' wives as well. There's much more severe culture historically. And so from the female point of view, they had to be cautious with who they slept with. From the male point of view, you had to be more of a solid guy. That was if you were a pretty solid guy, you had a good rep. You were kind of known as a guy who was a good bet. That was actually in your favor, right? How different it is today. And we're only going back to the 50s and 60s here. So this is the vast majority of the last 500 years. And then before that, it was just kind of really just based on your class. And there was actually an element of ruthlessness in it before that as well. Baron probably could just come kill you at the point of a sword and steal your wife. He probably could, back in the day. Whether they would do that is probably not good it wasn't good for their, whatever. But there was a level of brutality to it previously as well. But we've had this period in the 20th century, early 20th century, which was quite conservative. And probably the height of that is, the American 1950s, where you still had the conservative norms in society and in terms of men and women. But the system of pushing capital towards developing new technology, right, was so successful that the US actually managed to get itself in a situation where your average American, if they were just diligent, worked hard, could have, one man could provide for his whole family in relative affluence, and they have all of these appliances, new products, and so on. And so that's kind of, that in a way, the 1950s, you could actually say is peak 20th century civilization. It wouldn't be to everyone's taste, but as a kind of holistic balance of progress, technology, and then also call it traditional values, but sustainable values more than anything else. You could say it was the 1950s US, and there was there's also a period as well in the modern world, like I think going up until about the 90s, to be honest, in like Western Europe, shit didn't get completely batshit crazy until the 90s. Although it did start, it had already started, but it didn't get completely untenably insane really, until the 90s and 2000s. But what role does capital have in all of this? Well, capital, as it faced off against communist central planning in the 20th century, capitalism was basically able to do thousands and thousands of experiments in products and services to see what people found useful. And things that people found useful, further capital would essentially, capital is essentially invented as a concept. Like it's not actually real, it's just digits on a screen or just paper money. But the paper money, as a signal for what is useful, because people keep buying this stuff, and these companies were able to accumulate capital, your IBMs of the world, your Ford, your General Motors, etc. They're able to accumulate capital, they pay some tax back as well, but they accumulate capital. That is a signal, okay, this is a useful product. On balance, it has these number of features that make it better than the competing options. Obviously, Henry Ford definitely outdid the horse and car. So capital flowed flow towards him and his company. And so capitalism basically could run all these different experiments. Meanwhile, centrally planned, the Soviet Union and China, they had dire problems because they've got the geniuses in the middle of the country, the group of 300 luminaries. They've got to think of everything, they've got to set all the prices. It's not possible to do. You can't do it. It can't be done. You've got thousands and thousands of people, millions of people in a capitalist system, doing dynamic different things, trying to acquire capital, trying these different experiments, and some of them work. Most of them don't, but some of them do. And that's what gives us the progress. That's what gives us the car. That's what gives us IBM computers. That's what gives us, all of these different products, the washing machine, the iron, etc. Right, all of this stuff. It is a result, overwhelmingly, of experiments in capital. Yeah? Not everybody who participates in that, unfortunately for them, gets much of a share. As entrepreneurs who fail, they don't get much of a share, but the overall status of society goes up. So they probably can go and work somewhere else. And even if their car didn't get bought, if their invention didn't work, well, they can still probably drive a motor car or listen to a radio that was invented by somebody else and got the share of capital. So overall, the standard of living goes up. And that was the face-off between the West and the East. And the West basically dicked Russia, to be honest, on this front. In terms of standard of living, the West utterly dicked communism. So thousands of experiments and a multiplicity of different styles of doing things severely beat the luminaries, in the communist countries, who a bit of noise here from the motorbikes. The luminaries in the communist countries who were just not able to compete and keep up. Nowhere near. Well, they did okay with certain things, but overall, some of the scientists were quite good, but overall, they just, despite all the resources and all the brilliant manpower, all these brilliant Russian mathematicians and so on, they could not keep up with the dynamism of the West. And that's not just, it's US predominantly, but there's also a lot of this, there's mentions to other people as well. James Dyson, obviously the UK, there's Tim Berners-Lee from the UK as well, the inventor of the internet. There's Alan Turing, the inventor of the first computer. So there's many notable mentions. Nikola Tesla as well, who was from Serbia, Croatia, debatable, but he's certainly from the Balkans. So there's lots of notable mentions, but it was basically Russia versus US, essentially facing off in this new world, right? And it has some interesting effects on the sexual marketplace. This is a sexual marketplace channel, but it does have some interesting effects. You can't escape, if you imagine being in a Neolithic tribe compared to capitalist New York of the 1980s, of course men and women are going to behave differently, obviously the women are going to behave differently. So it leads to all these secondary effects. No one thinks that driving a motor car or inventing a motor car is going to affect the sexual marketplace. I'm sure that was the last thing on Henry Ford's mind, or James Dyson's mind, right? But they do massively affect it. No one thinks that ideology like communism is going to have a massive effect on the, on the overall, on the intersexual dynamic. Same with China as well. But it had massive effects, downstream effects in society. So in the West, you've got much more freedom of choice for the women, and the women basically, because the society is so much more prosperous, American women essentially got spoiled. They got used to a standard of living where men could actually provide for them without them doing much. They could be lazy bitches, to be honest, in the 1950s. It's just, I'm sorry, they could. It wasn't like being a housewife in the 1910s where you really had to work hard. You could be a lazy bitch. If you were good looking and glamorous, you could be a lazy bitch. You could have a husband who worked on Wall Street, or who was a head engineer at Ford or whatever. And you could live the life of fucking Riley. You could live the life of a aristocrat from the Middle Ages. Yeah, and this really has been, I think it's been embedded into US culture. There's this kind of princess complex. I think it's there. I just think it's there. This expectation of prosperity and not realizing you're basically like, it's the allegory of the princess who slept on all these mattresses, right? That's essentially most American chicks, because they're born into such an incredible level of prosperity. And then you contrast that with other parts of the world where that prosperity isn't really there. And the girls are definitely more down to earth. They're just more humble because they don't have an expectation that a guy's going to buy them a car, or they're going to have an easy life where their house and stuff is going to be taken care of. I think for American women actually now, the penny is starting to drop. From what I can see online, the penny is starting to drop a little bit. That world is just not on the table for them, because it's just not there's just not enough guys who can provide that type of life. And the guys who can, a lot of the Silicon Valley guys, you know, they're sort of, they're not the prototypal leader. So the guys that can, they're going to, whether they're even desirable, a lot of these heads of funds and stuff, a lot of them are gay. You know, like it's a different type of guy. It's not like the 1950s guy who's like head of the factory type of thing, or even a middle manager. So the prosperity just isn't there. It's just not there, and that's definitely a realization for them. You know, ultimately, I think it's a good thing though, because there will just be a generation, there'll be an entire crop of humans lost in that country because of this, who will just have been holding out for something that's just never going to appear. It just won't, right? So that's the kind of women on that score. And I think the men, the millennials, my generation, we were kind of brought up on equality. But where does equality actually come from? Because it doesn't come from the 1950s, or it kind of starts in the 1960s. You know, the feminist movement, strangely led by a lot of Jewish women, almost exclusively. Apart from de Beauvoir, the French woman, look at all of the Americans, for some reason they're all Jewish. I don't know what that is. Steinem, it's the most famous one being Steinem. This is not like a rant, by the way. It's more like, do they just really fucking hate their society? Do they just really fucking, deep down, do they just really hate Jewish society, their own women? I don't know. But yeah, Steinem being the famous one, which you say something like, the famous phrase is, we became the men we dreamt of marrying, whatever that means. A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, all of these things, right? You start to see that biting hostility towards men, and it comes out of the writings of women in that time. It's mostly the US, it has to be said. Were they psyoped in a way? I'm going to come on to this in a moment. You have the French woman, de Beauvoir. Her writing is complete garb. Most of them, honestly, I'm not just saying this to rant, but most of the writing, because I've unfortunately been subjected to this because of some of the like modules and things I've taken in my studies. Most of the writing is total garbage. De Beauvoir's complete, utter garbage. Her book, The Second Sex, 1,000-page book, moaning essentially about being a woman, and all she can come up with in the end is, the only way for us to gain equality is to follow Karl Marx. That is, ironically, the most submissive thing I've ever heard as well. So it's like you can't actually get away from female submissiveness. Even the great feminazi herself, Simone de Beauvoir, what does she do in the end? She's just a sob licking Marx's boot in the end. So yeah, that's the kind of span of, well, that's the first proto-feminist thing. And I basically think all of this, feminism, this whole movement and so on, and the thing that's really thrown no-fault divorce, legalization of abortion, which is an utterly disgusting crime. Don't even mention that around me, anyone, because there is no argument for it as a process. It's straightforward child sacrifice, yeah, and you should see it as monstrous as that. Anyone having an abortion, sorry, you've committed child sacrifice. That child can't consent to being harvested, yeah. So it's a disgusting crime. And they use the word abortion to make it sound much more appealing and nicer than it actually does. Every woman who has one, the majority of women who have them, the vast majority, have psychological problems afterwards that they can't disclose, because it's like, well, I went for this, I'm responsible, this is supposed to be the right thing to do, I want my career, blah, blah, blah. Actually, I feel like fucking shit. Well, I wonder why. It's like a man who had his fucking dick cut off or something. It's like, well, yeah, part of your reason for being alive is reproduction. Obviously, if you just completely self-immolate, yeah, and in the woman's case, an abortion is a case of self-immolation, obviously she's going to feel like shit, and they do. And some of them have multiple abortions. It's such a disgusting process. Unforgivable, in my opinion, especially in the age of contraception as well. I've been fucking since I was 15. That's 25 years. No girl I've been with ever had an abortion. And if one got pregnant and she wanted to have an abortion, I would just say, here's my net worth. There you go, it's on the table for you. Just don't kill the child yet, just have the fucking child. It's a disgusting crime that our society has permitted. This is a side point, it's a side rant here. But yeah, it's just if anyone watches the channel, you know, you can, if you don't want to have children, just take contraception seriously. Basically, serious contraception is use a condom and pull out. There you go, there's your serious contraception. If you use a condom properly, you're not going to get a girl pregnant. Yeah, because there's only a few days per month where she even can get pregnant. So if you're using a condom properly, it's very unlikely. If you use a condom and you pull out as well, jizz on her face or something, you ain't going to get her pregnant, okay? And anyone who says, oh, I got pregnant using a condom, absolute bollocks. It's complete bollocks. They're all taking drugs. It's all bullshit. They're all just liars. They're all fucking liars. It's complete bullshit. Because these same girls who say things like that, I've been with some of these girls, and they're just like, they're wanting me to fuck them without a condom. And I'm like, oh, really? You got pregnant using a condom, did you? I'm sure you did. Yeah, when like with me, like another guy's just gonna go, they're gonna be in the moment. They're not gonna have my, I don't know, self-control or whatever. You know, it doesn't make me better, but they might be drunk or on drugs. They're gonna fuck the girl without a condom, there you go. Next thing you know, she's fucking pregnant, yeah? And so this disgusting crime that is happening, being permitted across all of society is such a bad crime that if Western society, from a biblical point of view, if Western society collapses, this will be literally one of the reasons, because we don't have enough people, but it may be a moral recompense for the level of crime that we've been committing against human infants. Anyway, so that rant is over. Abortion is just one factor. The pill is another factor. And the overall picture post World War II is very, very simple. It's very simple, and it all comes down to money and productivity. And this is really where this the rubber hits the road with this whole spiel that I've been on for like the last hour. Productivity, yeah, producing more goods and services. Put very simply, after World War II, right, the period of honor, violence, and killing had reached its zenith, right, its absolute zenith. Really, it reached its zenith in World War I. We were so stupid we had to repeat it, right? But it reached its zenith. The notion, this kind of the tribal notion, the tribal way of life, the raiding way of life. And what is war, if anything, other than just a great, organized, structured raid of someone else's territory, killing their men, stealing their women, and stealing their resources in an attempt to, you know, further your own interest. That's really what war is. It's just one big fucking raid. And after World War II, it was such a destructive, you know, culturally destructive moment for the world, reshaped the entire world completely. And you know, we have obviously the nuclear bomb being dropped. The nuclear bomb is kind of the end of raiding culture, really. Like you've got to, even with the wars that we've had since then, and there's obviously the atrocious war in the Ukraine, the Balkan wars. Thank goodness so far no one has been so completely fucking insane as to go all the way in terms of the weaponry, right? So World War II marks a pause, certainly, and really it's the last raid. It's the last great raid of a scale of that major powers can really do because of nukes. And something else happened in that war as well, which was an increase in production. Yeah, and it's kind of like the penny starts to drop as well. If we just increase supplies, we increase wealth. right, well, we just put all the women in the factories. Hold on a second. The banks start to look at this and go, we're lending out and we're getting all this return. And the return is simply productivity. Yeah, money is ultimately just ultimately accounting. It's just a proxy. So what it all comes down to is productivity on the supply side. So more products, more supplies. And it's like, okay, we've got all this technology now, we can produce all of this stuff, including high-grade weapons, but cars, fashion stuff, clothing, medical equipment, we can produce all of it. Why don't we just take the women and just put them into the workforce? Why don't we just do that? Yeah, imagine how much return and imagine how much productivity we can get out of the economy if we don't just have the men producing, but we have the women producing as well. And this, without doubt, would have been talked about at the highest levels within banks, mostly between banks and governments, right? And certainly the US will have almost certainly looked at this and gone, hold on, we're competing against the Soviets right now. They're going for this equality thing over there. They're doing it. The Soviets are already doing it because Marxism is about equality. So they're doing it under an ideological umbrella. We're going to need to do it under a capitalistic umbrella. So there's a weird parallel there. But ultimately, throwing women into the workforce, well, it does factually reduce men's wages, but it does increase productivity on some level. On some level, it increases the breadth of productivity, maybe not the penetration and innovation of productivity, but it does at least potentially increase a breadth of productivity. You have more workers, more McDonald's workers, more workers in factories, right? The whole thing. And so you have an entire morality which doubles down on the nobility of labor and work and working hard, etc., moving your way up the corporation. Yeah, that's obviously US culture to a T. Yeah, absolutely. I talk about the US a lot because it's just a cultural hegemon. Yeah, Europe is very interesting. It's doing its own thing. It's fucking awesome. But in terms of the tip of the spear, just forget about it. It's the US. Germany and the UK had a bit of a time in the 20th century, probably 80s through to about 2010. UK is a halfway house between Europe and the US, but it's more towards Europe these days than it is towards the US. So US is still the tip of the sphere. And it was basically decided we're going to increase productivity by having both men and women in the workplace. That alone will double productivity. Okay, so what happens next? Does that affect the sexual marketplace? Obviously, fuck yeah it does. Fuck yeah it does. And all of these ideologies, and actually Marx would also agree with this as well, the ideology of like equality and women's rights and all this stuff, all of these crazy bitches writing, even though it doesn't kind of goes against their biology in so many ways, all that ideology is really just a big fucking projection. And it's just post hoc rationalization for the true thing that's happening, which is we're shunting women out of the household, working for their families in the household, and we're shunting them into corporations. And they're going to work, and the general standard of living is going to rise because of it. And so we need all this ideology. I'm pretty convinced some of the ideology it was because it came out of nowhere in the US. I'm pretty much convinced it was a government intervention along with media, because they realized we're going to have to. They may not accept this. The population may not accept this. Women probably don't want to go and fucking work in a factory. You probably prefer, I'd rather just marry a doctor, thank you. No, we want you in a factory. Or we want you working advertising. We want you to become a doctor and spend your entire fertile years, delivering babies for other people, right? And so that was, that was the move. It was a huge move culturally. It's a huge cultural shift to get women basically working in corporations, which men were already in. And it does factually reduce the value of male labor because labor becomes more easily available. So men are now, their earning capacity is reduced. It's just a fact. They're just reduced. So what does that mean? It already means that a man's ability to economically command a household is now gone. Yeah, so now he has to offer something else to the woman. The woman's quote unquote got her own money, and he has to offer something else to the woman. And from a point of view of many average men, they probably don't offer that much else. They probably didn't offer that much else. other than a bit of companionship and partnership, but they don't even really know, they don't understand females, really don't understand female psychology and so on, so they don't really know what the fuck is going on. And women all of a sudden have the option to go and, like live under their own means, and it kind of gets them kind of drunk on their own independence for a period of time, and they go off. And obviously there's lots of middle class women from the 60s and 70s and 80s who later in life, even some of the most vociferous feminists have said, yeah, I regret being such a retard. I was just completely self-centered, and I regret being older with no children, and there's nothing I can do about it now except my choices. That's the mature lot. The others go off and become mental cat ladies or become activists and so on. So there's definitely a portion of women who, in a way, they were victims of it. They made their choices, but in a way they were victims. They took an option in circumstances. And then you've also got, on top of that, no-fault divorce. You've got abortion. And I mean, no-fault divorce is an enormous one. It's a ridiculous law, which even if a woman is in work, if a guy is a higher earner, it basically rewards her for divorcing him. And so all of this stuff has really led to, and just the acceptability of divorce as something that's acceptable. I don't think it's acceptable, to be honest. I think if a woman is being actually abused by a man, I think she should probably divorce him. I do think she should. But I would ask, in that case, why was she allowed to marry that man? I think all marriages should be vetted by fathers in an ideal world. Problem is, then, if your dad's a fucking psychopath, that's an issue. But in an ideal world, dads should do a lot more vetting of husbands, potential husbands. Yeah, as a dad, you understand men more than your daughter ever will, and you'll be able to see if the guy's acceptable or not. I mean, there's a reason why you used to have to go to the dad and ask for the girl's hand in marriage. There should be a lot more of that going on. In societies where that happens, there's a better turnover of marriage as well. So basically, you have this situation where, from a legal point of view, especially in the US, women don't need men economically. Especially in the younger years, they out-earn men. They don't out-earn men in the long term because most of their jobs are bullshit, but some of them do. But for the most part, they don't have the staying power to keep, like, I'm 40 and I'm just hitting my stride, and I'm going to keep going till 70. Yeah, I ain't stopping ever. It's never going to stop. Yeah. They don't really have that mentality. If you notice, most of them, like when they graduate, I'm not joking, most women, by the time they graduate, they think they're going to be a millionaire by 30 by working for an accounting company or like an advertising company. I'm not joking. That is genuinely the mentality, and that's for the smart ones. So yeah, for the most part, the women who were married, they were marrying slightly higher earners than their men with decent economic kind of potential. And obviously the guys, after no-fault divorce, I mean, it's absolutely heinous what happens to so many guys in the US. You having a woman divorcing you, you didn't really do anything that bad. You're not that thrilling, but you're now losing your home, etc. We all know all these stories, right? And it really is as bad. It really is as bad as it's been made out. And even if there may be some exaggeration online, the fact is, it can happen. It can happen. You can lose half your assets for, basically being a good guy. Something that would be completely absurd in any other point in history. So things like that, no-fault divorce, some of these moves on a legal standpoint are one of the biggest self-owns in civilizational history. I mean, it really is an insane self-own. And it's kind of unleashed this combination in the US where you've got the girls who are expecting a lot because you've got a century of American prosperity, so they all expect a lot. But at the same time, they're completely unleashed of kind of any sense of responsibility or moral duty or kind of pressure on them to look good, to cook, to clean, to be of a decent weight, etc. There's no pressure on them. So it's they're basically, from everything I see, I would say 70% of them are completely unmarriable. And I see too many overseas, unfortunately. I tend to move whenever I hear that accent. My wingman, Ephraim, he laughs at me on this score because he dates the good American women over there. But for your average guy, forget it. You're better off going overseas. You're just better off going overseas. But yeah, as a cultural hegemon, it's kind of unleashed this insanity over there. And then where does that leave your average guy? It means you actually need to be viscerally attractive to turn the woman on, yeah, to actually get sex. And that's where my channel comes in, actually teaching guys. Fortunately, women are actually quite easy. Fortunately, so naturally, biologically, they're not as fussy as people make out. Once you get off Tinder into the real world, you realize a lot of women are actually quite easy. Yeah, a good, bold approach, strong kind of sense of self, and good personality, being in all right shape as well. All of those things, you'll get some women. Trust me, you'll get some women. And over time, you maybe your standards will even go up a little bit as well. So cold approach is so good because it teaches you, what I'm being taught on these apps, because I'm not the I'm not the top 2% of looks, but in terms of approach and balls and personality, I'm probably top 1%. Maybe I'm gassing myself up, but in my own mind I am, because frankly, because I don't see any guys doing that much in the streets. So you can actually very easily transform yourself. If you follow along the stuff on my channel, you start applying it and actually start getting yourself out there. If you form your own war band with other guys, you actually can transform yourself into something quite formidable. And this is really the resistance. This is really the resistance to all of the chaos and all of the changes that have happened in society. And part of it is a result of capitalism, the fact that women are now across the board in the workplace. They're not starting the companies, they're not taking that level of risk by and large. A few of them are, but overwhelmingly they're not. The innovation is still coming from the men who are actually willing to take those kind of risks, essentially risk their entire livelihood and future. But women are in the workplace as in kind of bureaucratic roles for the most part, and so you've got to appeal to them in a different way. And I think it's good in a way because it does free you as a man. It will level you up as a man. You don't just you're not just really in the 1950s. Could you not just say all the wives were just gold diggers? Basically, you can make that argument, right? So it does kind of free you in a way. And it levels you up as well. If you're a man on my channel, if you've been able to sit through this content, you must by definition have an analytical mind. You must enjoy listening to deep reflections on how things work. And I'm talking here. This is like 20 years of me traveling all over the world, running my business. The penny has started to drop in terms of economics in the last 5 years, because it's something I've been trying to get to the bottom of. Like we're all running around chasing money every fucking month. I'm thinking about it. What the fuck is it? Yeah, and how do we generate more of it? Yeah, without ripping people off and being a decent person, because it seems to be so important. And I'm gonna come back round to this in a moment, because there's another theory that I'm playing with at the moment. So cold approach itself, the stuff I show on this channel. Go check out my website if you want to find out more about me, the service I actually offer, guys. It's a great way to level up. It's a great way to get yourself back on an even keel and put yourself back in the driving seat in this crazy world. Because all these things will continue to change. By the way, this is a dynamic situation. The last 60 years we've seen massive changes. We may see a change going back to the whole trad wife thing, but I'd be even skeptical of that, because is that just being a gold digger really? Is really that what a trad wife really was, just a gold digger? What I want, and I think what most men want, is genuine desire from a woman. And the way that is peaked is by going over to the girl, engaging with her man to woman. Yeah, that's really the way that it's peaked. And just my experience, but it feels different. It feels different, and this skill levels you up as well, because it's not an easy skill, dude. It's not an easy fucking skill. Anyone can sit online and talk about it. Another thing is to actually go out and do it, and it's definitely a lot more difficult. There's a reason I go out and I see nobody doing it, ever. There's a reason for that. I'm sure many guys would like to. There's a reason why even now, after 3 years, I still have days where I'm going, fuck, do I have to fucking do this? Really? Especially when I'm on my own. Hey, yeah, just go. Yeah, because it is not that easy. Yeah, it's much harder than going to the gym. It's much harder than going to the gym. It's much harder than looks maxing. It's much harder than fashion maxing. But once you get over that hump,
Yeah, because you've got over that hump, you're in clear, open, it's blue ocean strategy. All the girls are there. You've got some wings alongside you who are decent, forget it. You'll be the new modern day warband going out and you just take whatever girls you want. And that's how it is. That's how it is. So it's an amazing skill to learn. If you want to learn more about it, go check out my website. If you're motivated to learn in the short term, um, and you'd like to spend the weekend with me listening to some. No, I don't lecture people, and I don't really lecture people. The immersions are much more. It's really just training. These online lives, these are more for just for interest, so guys get to know me more and get to hear my thoughts about this whole space. In the long term, this is very, very new. This project that I'm in right now with this channel is very, very new. In the long term, I see this as a way of fighting back against this commodification of men's dating lives. That people have become desperate. They're on fucking apps. They're look maxing. They're fucking sawing their heads in half. I think it's all very unhealthy. And it's also a fight back against the declining birth rates and massive male and female unhappiness. And we've had this horrific event in, I think apps and social media has just been absolutely awful for society, and that's borne out by the depression rates and by the number of guys who are, taking themselves out of the game, the number of women who are becoming increasingly depressed, the lack of family formation. I can't do it all, but the genuine mission of this channel is to fight back, man by man, one by one, guys who follow my stuff. And there's guys who've messaged me who said, Joseph, just to let you know, I met a girlfriend. Joseph, just to let you know, I've started to get results. And this is why I'm putting this shit out there. That's why I'm doing these lives. It's why I do those fucking infields, even though the recent ones have got like 50 views on them. Yeah, it's to show you guys what is actually possible. You do not need to be in a state of depression, in a state of desperation. I understand the entire fucking picture of what the fuck has happened to guys. Because I asked myself, how have we got to this point? And this is what this life is all about. And capitalism is actually part of the reason, yeah? Having men and women in the workforce, both together, in conjunction with no-fault divorce, in conjunction with ridiculous sexual morality, in conjunction with abortion and the pill and media, and all of the cultural stuff, it's really just a kind of smokescreen for the banks and the governments to say, we want these bitches working in the fields, for want of a better term, working in the corporate fields, because we want twice the productivity. The Soviets have got it, we want it as well. Yeah. That's all it is. All it is just money. It's all, the whole thing, the way men have been fucked, the way women have gone mental, the entire thing is just about money. Yeah, because money is created by economic development. Yeah, and you have economic development by increasing productivity. One way to increase it is innovation. That's the better way to increase it. But if you can't innovate, just squeeze more time out of people. Just push more people into the workforce. And that is it. Just about money. We all the stuff about all of the, this like, oh, it's this conspiracy, it's fucking Jewish conspiracy, fucking Islamic conspiracy. It's these people, it's that people. You don't need to look that far. It's much more simple than that. It's just about fucking cash. And productivity is what generates the cash. Yeah, so it's productivity is what gives the cash value. You could print more money, but it's not going to have any value if you don't have the productivity to filter it into. So that's all it is. The entire thing, the whole psyop, the whole fucking thing. Yeah, all the feminism, all of that is just a post hoc justification. All the apps and everything, maybe they promise something to begin with, it doesn't work. Yeah, with my training, you can look at my videos, you can do it for free. If you want my time, obviously my time is fucking hell. Obviously my time costs, but it is an exceptional experience for guys who come and actually do the training. There's not been anyone who's had any complaints. Actually, most people say, Jesus Christ. Most people actually say, fucking hell, I didn't realise it was going to be this mental, because they're getting numbers left, right and centre on day one, usually. And it can be a life changer for the right guy. You do have to carry it on afterwards. That's one of the things I'm working on at the moment. Is I offer extended support for guys afterwards,
one of the things I'm working on is thinking about how we can actually develop that it's even way higher level, where guys are really able to get support when they're out on sessions afterwards. I want guys to be linking up as well where possible, but that takes numbers, man. It takes numbers. And at the moment, I'm fighting against frauds. We're all the actual genuine coaches, which is like 6 of us. We're fighting against massive frauds on the internet who know how to generate retention through bullshit. We're fighting against AI, which is literally, a genius at generating retention. So you've got like AI images, AI video, AI script, AI audio. The whole thing is AI, and they get 60k views. You're going, that thing has never done a cold approach in its life. It doesn't have any emotion. It doesn't understand anything, right? And it's getting all these. It's tragic, dude. It's utterly tragic. By the way, feel free to share my channel with people who you think it would be useful for. That's very useful for me. At this point, it's kind of underground still. At this point, it's going to be that way for a little while longer. Maybe up to another year, to be honest, because I've got to get my production level sorted out. But yeah, if you're on the good side, shall we say, you're the guys who actually see the value in this, see the value in self-development, see genuine improvement, and you want to see men and women actually having a chance to get together, which is what I'm offering. Feel free to share the channel, because it's every new subscriber is good for me. I'm building towards 1,000 subs, and every new subscriber is good for me. When I get to 1,000, the plan is I'll start to reach out to other adjacent channels as well. That's the plan. But I feel like with with subscribers in the hundreds, I don't feel there's anything I can add to someone else's channel. This from a optics point of view. Despite the fact the content is there, the training is there, the results are there, from an optics point of view, there's not a lot I can add. So if you like the channel, definitely subscribe, share it with people who may find it useful, and especially if you know guys who are struggling in their personal life. It's always a very sensitive thing, but not everyone is cut out for this, and this is another realization as well. But this is a very important area of human life, man. It's a very important area. I don't want guys down and out, depressed, fucked, just staring up at the ceiling night after night, wondering when their luck is going to come in, wondering why there's and then they log in online and all they see is fucking, people complaining about hypergamy and fucking Fresh and Fit and all these people. It's not actually helping anyone. It's not helping anyone. And the point of this channel is to do it the correct way. Yeah, so this thing's going to be coming through in the future. So that was basically a civilizational take on capital, male-female dynamics, and civilization as well. The last thing I'll come around to now. So in summary, the whole thing in the last 60 years, all of these movements and equality and all of that, all it comes down to is we want women out in the fields slaving away. And the fields of modernity or the corporate offices. And that's why we want them, because we want the productivity. Yeah, because that's what our economy is driven off. Now, there's a very interesting point that comes off the back of this as well, which is innovative societies versus un-innovative societies. The vast majority of societies are non-innovative, the vast majority. They just repeat tradition after tradition, generation after generation. And that's essentially been it in human history. You might have some small iterations here and there, but the vast majority are non-innovative. The great innovators in history have been the Anglo-Germans, and the Americans would be the kind of Anglo-Germans on steroids, basically. You can say this. I think Greece and Rome also massively innovated as well, but the whole slave state thing. That's another, and that's it's certainly a weakness in their model, right? Abject slavery for 30% of the population. But the Anglo-American culture has been phenomenally innovative in the last 200 years. I mean longer, to be honest, but 300 years. And that's how England, as a backwater in Western Europe, real backwater, by the way, was seen as far culturally inferior to Italy by far, and also Spain as well, and France, frankly. You know, we were the cultural backwater of Europe, but for some reason, the kind of the autistic Anglo-German mind started to innovate when mechanical technology started to become more interesting, and it's really just relentlessly innovated since then in so many different spheres. And the US is an offshoot of that. So you've got Anglo society, German society, the US, and all of the various children of Anglo-German society. So Canada would be another child, Australia would be another child. The Nordics, maybe they're kind of doing their own thing. They're also quite innovative as well, it has to be said. But they're the same. They're the same society, basically. You know, it's the same thing. Those societies, it's very interesting because they are historically high growth, high innovation. Those societies, people are actually more decent, basically. They're more decent to each other historically, and they're also more decent in their treatment of women. They are more egalitarian, even way before the modern movements of, you know, that I've mentioned post-1960s. All of those places, the Nordics, England, the US, they're much more generous towards women because they can afford to be. And they're generally more decent to each other as well because they can afford to be. And the reason for that is they've been innovative, high-growth societies for a long time. This is a big part of the reason. When you have higher growth, the pie is getting a little bit bigger for everyone. Yeah, we're doing a little bit better than our parents did. Yeah, and it actually creates a more generous and open and optimistic environment. Yeah, environments that are low growth, which is most of the world, and low innovation, which is most of the world. Humanity exists in a kind of we'll call it kind of what would you call it? Tribal warlord, like mini fiefdom type of mentality. It's me and my boys, me and my family against you and yours, me and my clan against you and yours. And that's Serbia would be an example of that. That's how they are here. Yeah, it's been a more low growth, low innovation society. It is changing though. It's changing a lot. You can see it in the younger generation as well. Yeah, but historically it was more the kind of territorial thing. And that's not just Serbia, that's the whole fucking world. Africa, it's all your clan, yeah? And the treatment of women in those societies is more like chattel. Yeah, they can say they're more protective, but also they are more like, it's property, right? You're claiming your property, right? And a woman is an extension of that. But the whole society is more clannish, it's less generous, it's much more zero-sum, and it's much more like, it really is dog-eat-dog. Capitalism is not dog-eat-dog. The low growth countries, the Soviet Union, for example, was much slower growth. Yeah, and it's all, when you don't have economic growth, what's the only way to move up? Power, politicking, yeah, power moves. Yeah, it's a much uglier form of society. And that's a society, by the way, that Europe is going to head towards. It's already there, actually. It's already there. And this is why you see these verminous rats at the top of a lot of our societies these days. These manipulating vermballs, absolute scumbags at the top, right? And then interestingly, the incoming populations, they understand the game way more than the natives do. Let's just say like in the UK, you have a lot of like Pakistanis basically who've got into politics at the local bureaucratic layer, way above their population representation. Why is that? Because they know they come from societies in which the only way to get ahead is just ruthless, brutal, scrambling on top of each other, because there is no actual innovation or real growth. You've just got the pie, and if I want the pie, I'm gonna have to take some of your pie. And if I want the pie for my family and my people, we're going to have to take it away from you. And they actually understood, well, they just innately have got generation after generation growing up in that. And so they actually very quickly got into local council. Some of them even within years of arriving, which is an astonishing thing, right? So they understand like the mechanisms of power, where your average British person, is not thinking along those terms at all. They're actually thinking, why the fuck would I want to be a fucking shitty bureaucrat in a fucking MP earning whatever? They earn like quite a bit, they earn like 70k a year. But I don't want to do that. I want to earn fucking 300k a year. I want to be a fucking entrepreneur. Or I want to go and do an exciting job. I want to go and work for an amazing fucking company. Yeah, I want to go and work in the city, or I want to go and work for this amazing engineering company. I want to be a doctor. Be a fucking MP. What a bullshit job. And so the talented Brits, the majority don't even want to go anywhere near politics, unfortunately. And that's been historically the case. So that's just an interesting side point with low growth versus high growth societies. Anglo-American societies have been high growth, which has actually led to a much more generous spirited person, because it's like, well, the pie is growing, let's just all create, let's just all, basically be productive and be innovative, as opposed to like a low growth, like Balkan society, which is like, yeah, me and my boys are going to try and get into the government, and we'll just basically pillage the government. We'll build our shit, the way we want to build it. We'll take money from the Saudis. We'll fucking whatever, right? That's not just the Balkans. That's like most of the world, right? That mentality has, in a strange way, it has been a defense against the kind of a defense against liberalism, which has had all these catastrophic effects in the West. That clannish mentality has actually been a bulwark against that. But I don't know. Overall, I still prefer the old Anglo-American growth mentality. Maybe we could do with a little bit more severity. I think so, to be honest, a little bit more seriousness when it comes to the women question. That's for things like no-fault divorce. That's kind of for like another life. But yeah, this is just reflections on civilization. You probably can tell from this life, I'm downloading this stuff. Like, this is stuff that I think about a lot, because I know eventually I am going to be in a position of leadership in this area. I know that I am eventually. It's just a matter of when. And so because it genuinely fascinates me, and I think it's more than fascination, I think it's the most significant question. Like, if by the end of my tenure doing this, if by the end of that time there's been 1,000 elite men who've had several children, who maybe otherwise may never have had children, or at least in very good relationships have had great options, that will be a fairly decent victory for me. I want more than 1,000, to be honest, but 1,000 will be good. Like, I think I'm about in double digits at this point. I'm in double digits, but 1,000 will be good. So yeah, the macro scale stuff is really important. Now, as an individual, you don't have to worry about this stuff. You can just go out into the streets. Take my advice, go out into the streets, get yourself a girlfriend. But I'm talking about the mass scale of what someone who wants to make a change in this sphere, the mass scale of what someone like me is actually up against. You're in it, but you don't really have to think about this stuff. To be honest with you, you just have to go out and do the approach. But this might give you some context. Maybe you beat yourself up a little bit. You think, oh, I'm a loner, whatever. Why can't I get a girl? Other guys seem to do this. Or why aren't I the Giga Chad on the fucking apps or whatever? How come my dad, who's like 5'7" and fat, how come he got my mum, who's like, she's a pretty decent woman? All these things, like how did that all happen, right? Why have things changed so much? Why is an American guy, why can't I find a wife? Yeah, it's a lot of this stuff is just not your fault, boys. It just isn't. There's immense historical things that you're up against that have got nothing to do with you, and your ancestors would have found completely intolerable, actually. But we do have agency within this. We do have agency, and at the end of the day, men and women are always going to be attracted to each other. Women are always going to be attracted to men. It's such a hard thing to remember. It can get so overwhelming when you go out there, because the women, as a guy, we never get approached. So it's like you're always thinking, like, am I just an ugly bastard? Yeah, so many guys have said that to me. It's like, you're never going to be approached, dude. The answer to whether you're good looking or not, or even remotely attractive, is if I do 10 approaches, right, and they're fairly good, do occasionally some of the girls give me a bit of a look? And if the answer's yes, then you're desirable. Okay, then you're desirable. And actually, men are much more desirable than they realise. This is one of the hardest things for guys to get their head around. But if you have any positive feedback at all, then you're probably much more desirable than you realise. So many of my students, I've watched them in set. Even there's one guy I'm thinking of now. He really had an issue with his self-esteem. And I watched him in set with some absolutely stunning girls. I'm watching a girl going, she's fucking almost wet at this point for this guy. And the guy had no clue at all. So it's, some of it I think obviously goes into younger age, self-esteem and so on, but you're much better off just thinking, this girl's creaming herself, I'm getting this girl wet. Yeah, I've gone from like talking about civilization to this, right? I'm getting this girl wet right now. She's fucking, her clit is getting fucking, her nips are getting hard, right? Think like this, because you've got to overcome, you've got to go extreme to combat all that extreme shit that's been put into you. So you've got to go extreme, right? And even me, I'm saying this as a guy who's walking this path with you. I've got like girls around and stuff that I'm messaging, and I've got girls in a different country and stuff like that. So my situation is sorted, but at the same time, I keep pushing myself out there because I don't want to be a guy coming onto lives talking shit as a guy who's not approaching. I've done 5 approaches tonight. Yeah, it's not a massive session, but it's like, it does give me the right to go and talk about things. And I still feel it in myself. This time I did a 2 set on these two, they're about 5'11", these 2 girls, very attractive girls. They're often the best ones to approach. And I felt really good afterwards. I paid them a good bold compliment. I think they were going from one club to another. And it's just a very brief, like 15-second interaction. But I felt really good afterwards. Because I was like, they were so fit that they would intimidate most guys. And strangely for me, those ones are the ones where I feel like that she's just worth an approach, mate. She really is. So yeah, go for the absolute top of the tree. If you see the absolute prime beauties, fucking go for them. Like the absolute 10s, they're the ones, they can take it the best, man. They can take it the best. So don't set your sights low. As you start off this whole journey for cold approach, you will find it's a great journey of personal transformation. You may find yourself being a little bit bolder in certain areas of your life. You may find yourself becoming more ambitious. You may find yourself meeting really cool guys like I've met. You will find yourself meeting some attractive women, and you'll also find you'll go through phases as well. I've gone through phases of, oh my God, this is way too much work. For fuck's sakes, do I have to fucking do this? Because I'm coaching, I literally have to do it. I have to do sessions, which is, I think that kind of does kill the joy a little bit. But you'll go through other things when you think this is the greatest thing in the world. You'll be out with friends and you'll think we're unstoppable. You'll go through all these different phases. You will eventually get to a phase, and it takes a while. You'll eventually get to a phase where you go, they're just women, aren't they, really? They're just girls. They're just chicks. They're just fucking women at the end of the day. We make a big fucking song and a dance over it. It's because guys don't have access. Of course they're going to make a big song and dance over it, but it's just women at the end of the day. It's a fucking hilarious thing when you start to get that realization. I don't sell the dream of harems. That was what RSD and Tyler, they were all selling back in the day. I went down that route. It's very chaotic and it's completely unsustainable, and it will negatively impact your career as well. If you're trying to run a harem game and all that type of thing, so you're going to have to be a liar. For the most part anyway, unless you're fucking got the wealth of a sultan or something. Mostly those types of arrangements, it does end up being wealth involved in wealth. So I'll have a look at some of the people here. So let's see who we've got here. So subconscious, we even have meta glasses shaming, even if the woman's face is blurred. Yeah, I mean, good luck to these little young Gen Zs going out there hitting the meta glasses. Good luck to them. I think they're hitting it fucking hard, and it's got some bad associations, but fuck the shaming. As men, we just have to literally ignore what women are saying. Just ignore it. As long as my girl likes me, that's all that fucking matters, to be honest. As long as I like myself, and as long as Nazareth has got my fucking back, that's all I really care about. Smells like a divorced incel. Oh, Terence, you little libtarded loser, get off my channel, mate. You European, go watch my infield if you think I'm a fucking incel, dude. Absolute fucking loser. I just removed this guy. Yeah, so I just remove people. I just don't want to associate with losers. Someone's talking about Iran. Someone's talking about Trump. You Americans are just such freaks. Jesus Christ. I was in Medellin with Ephraim, my American wing, a couple of like the last month or the last few months. He was out for a month, and we met one American guy. Within about 10 seconds, he started talking about Trump. This motherfucker, just you bunch of utterly brainwashed cretins, dude. I don't know what they're putting in your McDonald's out there, but I'll start to look into the E numbers, man. It's a shame. It's a shame because it's you guys are the tip of the fucking spear. Do you realize America is such a contradiction. You guys are the tip of the spear for global technology, right? You've got the biggest military ever assembled in human history, right? You have the largest, most powerful arsenal of jets, of nukes, of planes ever assembled, right? You have the most innovative companies of the last 30 to 40 years and the last century, realistically. The rest of the world, much to our chagrin, we're just miles behind you still in that regard. And yet you're a bunch of fat bastards half of you are mentally fucking ill and you're all drug takers, right? What the fuck is going on with your country? Essentially, the US is essentially it's like 3 million smart people and like 297 fucking people who are fucking not really worth a great deal. That's the US. So it's the minority of a few million people who are driving the entire world forward. And realistically, it's probably like 20,000 people who are driving the entire world's economy right now in the US. Mad. Jesus, thank you, brother. Orthodox, I am Orthodox, brother. So thank you for tuning in. Hopefully it's been an interesting live. That's been a very, very long-winded one. Don't worry if you didn't follow all of that. You don't really need to. As I say, you just need to get in and get your approaches done. But if you're a highly analytical man, I think you probably will find that quite interesting. If you're a thinker, if you are the type of guy who follows my content at the top level, it's really very smart guys. It's extremely smart guys who are smart enough to know there must be a solution to this. Company directors, company founders, engineers, scientists, creators, journalists. It's very, very really intelligent people, programmers who are drawn to my content. So I don't mind going in deep with this stuff. I think it's better for me to do it live on camera rather than go at it in the form of a blog. It just probably gets me a few more subs. And I'm just rolling down my high street now, just back to the old apartment. So it's Saturday, 5 approaches this evening. Good little evening. Nice little number yesterday, and I'm actually quite happy with it because at the moment I'm going through a deep planning phase over the next 10 years. It sounds like, I don't know if everyone does this, or I had to plan out my 30s big time. I hired a life coach in my late 20s. I really wanted to plan out my 30s, and I've ticked it all off. One way or another, I've managed to do it all. Pretty much, We could always throw a few more orgies, that would always be pleasant, but I've traveled the world, I've had some fun. I've helped a lot of people in my main business. I've helped people now in this business as well. And I'm now looking at the next 10 to 20 years going, right, what's the next step? And it's I'm going to have to really, really plan it because it does take planning. It's very open-ended, my 30s. I had a good direction, but it was very open-ended. This, if you're going to have a campaign to take something over, you need to plan. Yeah, and to really, really have an impact, it does require a plan. So that's where I'm at the moment. This is my apartment here. It's my fucking grimy little apartment down here. It's actually quite nice. I've got it for a steal because it's like St. Sava's Cathedral's just there, right? I've got it for an absolute steal because it's some Serbian guys like bachelor pad, which he obviously cannot be asked to do any. It needs complete refurb, but he obviously can't be asked. And so it's going for a really like pretty cheap price on Airbnb, ridiculously cheap. Although for Serbia it's not cheap, but for the area, to be near to one of the biggest cathedrals in the whole fucking of Europe, in the centre of a major capital, and it's a fucking big flat as well. But the fittings are complete dog shit. Like everything is breaking basically. What does this say here? Yoimati. Whatever that is outside, I don't know. So yeah, I will leave things there for this evening, boys. If you want to find out more about me, or you want to solve the issue of cold approach, you find these lives interesting. The training itself is very, very hands-on. You know, we have a few discussions here and there, but the training itself is very much hands-on. But look out for more video content coming through this year. I will continue to do the lives. Once I get back into UK around October time, you will see a massive increase in the quality. I promise you that. I'll be getting new equipment. So that will be in the pipeline as well. And yeah, don't suffer in silence. Feel free to comment on any of my videos if you're struggling. And I need to know where you are. I need to know what you're struggling with, particularly if you're a high-level professional, because you're the guys who, let's face it, if you guys are not sorting your personal lives out, everybody else is definitely fucked. Okay, if even the best guys are struggling, everyone's fucked. So I'm focused on the best guys. That's who I want to hear from. Guys who've got their shit together, they've got a good career, maybe they're in their mid-30s, maybe they're looking around going, I've done everything I feel like I should have done, I just need to bridge the gap. How the fuck do I do that? Yeah. And you're looking around going, there's girls around, I just don't know what the fuck to do. Intelligence to go, like, what actually would I say next? You know, what would I do next? All of these answers to these mysterious questions, I've got the answers for this, yeah? It's very difficult to find the answers for this, yeah? I'm part of a mastermind. It's basically the most aggressive cold approach guys by far in the world that I'm aware of. And we trade notes every week. So it just, the training you get is you're light years ahead of everybody else within the first day. The only thing people need to be aware of is, even if once you've got the training, it still is the case, you still may go out and you go, oh, those weird emotions, they're still there. And it's like, yeah, they're still there, but you know what to do now. You know they're a kind of illusion, basically. Whereas I think before you start your training, those emotions are actually justified. Those emotions are justified. So, yeah. We'll leave things there for this evening, boys. It's been a pleasure to do this live. Thank you for joining, anyone who's joining. I'm Joseph, and yeah, this is a lovely St. Sava's Cathedral here in Belgrade. I'll catch you boys in the next one. Jesus is indeed King. Yeah, catch you boys soon.